Quels impacts l'épidémie de Covid-19 a-t-il eu sur votre travail?
The impacts have been tremendous. If you imagine that there are, around 20 million people whose health have been affected by COVID-19 around the world, you have to think that in education, at some point, there were 1.5 billion learners out of school, and 90% of cultural facilities closed to cope with the pandemic, to avoid crowds and so on. So, even though health has been enormously impacted, and it's the reason for us to be careful, education and culture were the ones that suffered the most. For us, the work has been, has increased enormously. The demand from our member states, for 5 member states, for advice on how to mitigate and, reduce the impacts of COVID-19 in their own systems, in education systems, in cultural systems, and so on, and how to increase cooperation in sciences in order for vaccines, testing, and other elements to be taken forward as a global public good, have increased enormously. So we've been working, we shift the kind of work we do, in order to exactly address the socioeconomic impacts, negative impacts of COVID-19 on education, on culture, and other aspects of societies. For example, in Mongolia, we are working to support the government with advice, first during the school closures, to provide learning to students who are out of school, so online learning, but not only online learning, remote learning for those who are out of the internet. Nomad population in Mongolia is very large. So helping them to find solutions to provide education to groups that were being kept out of school is an enormously important part of our work. Same for culture. With 90% of museums in China were closed. It's a tremendous loss economically, for example, with the loss of income from visitors, so that museums, many of those museums, suffer from the loss of income that they experienced. But also, the public loses access to the beauty of culture, and culture makes us resilient, makes us, tolerate this kind of crisis better, makes us, more able to face adversity. So having the loss of culture loses, it creates a loss in our capacity, to deal with the pandemic, for example. So helping museums with guidance, for example, to put the exhibitions online, to make sure that we continue to spread the culture and to make people resilient, to show how resilient culture is, as a matter of fact. All the artists that lost opportunities for exhibition, and, income, and public interaction, and so on, to keep finding solutions and exchanging with other countries on what are the possibilities for us to keep culture going, and how do we reopen culture safely as well. The same way that we are talking about reopening schools, we have to think about, how do we hold festivals, how do we hold exhibitions, how do we hold in a safe way, that creates these capacities for the future as well. So the kind of work we do has moved from, very much towards this emergency mode of coping with the socioeconomic impacts of the pandemic. And we are very proud of some of the things that we were able to do, including with collaboration from the Chinese in other countries.